Heyo, welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast, an emergency video on demand. The Athletic has had some very interesting reporting over the last 12 hours. I'm Sean Anderson, joined by Adam Hoge and Jared Wyllys to let you know about this news, what we know, and what to make of this. John Greenberg and Dan Hayes of The Athletic are reporting that the Ishbia brothers are no longer going to be interested in buying the Minnesota Twins and becoming the majority owner of that franchise, and that they are going to increase their stakes in White Sox ownership. They have until 2/28 to have the what's it called? The ancillary owners that are currently have stake in the White Sox to sell their shares at a reported 1.8 billion. So, Adam, I know that you have had some info on the Ishbia brothers and their interest in the White Sox and Twins. What do you make of this? Because as Dan Hayes has been reporting, it seemed very clear that the Ishbia brothers were going to be purchasing the Twins and not increasing their stake in the White Sox.
Yeah, it looked like this was going to be a kind of a prayer that could have helped the White Sox go in a completely wrong direction with the Twins. And all of a sudden last night, like as I was going to bed and I saw this report from The Athletic, I'm like, wow, this is massive. Because let me just kind of back up and go through my own timeline of this, because I've always sort of found it interesting. And obviously, because I'm covering football and the Bears, I'm not like totally trying to dive into this on a day-to-day basis. But so right about the time, I think it was October, that you had that Dave Stewart report, like story come out that like maybe Reinsdorf would be interested in a group with Dave Stewart, but then like didn't really seem like there was much legs to it. And at the end of the day, it just still didn't seem like Jerry was willing to sell. Well, kind of around that same time, I got tipped that, hey, you know, Matt Ishbia, who owns the Suns, he's interested in buying the White Sox. And I'm like, okay, that, you know, that's super interesting, because here's a guy with a ton of money who's made a pretty significant impact with the Suns right away and done a lot of good things. And anyway, I looked into it a little bit, and kind of more what I learned was like, actually Justin Ishbia is the baseball guy here, and he's really the one that wants to own a baseball team. Matt would be involved, but it would really be like kind of the opposite that they have with the Suns, and they just want to own a team, it seems like, in baseball. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting, because like, I don't know, baseball, it's not the NBA these days, obviously, but okay, you got a lot of money, do what you want. You love baseball, fine. And then I find out, which we've all found out since, that Justin Ishbia is building this like massive complex on Lake Michigan. And I'm like, wow, okay. So there might be something to this, but you know, you can't buy something that's not for sale. And then all of a sudden it comes out, all right, the Twins are for sale and the Ishbias are going to go all in to buy the Twins. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Because not only you have these brothers that could really rejuvenate the White Sox, and instead they're going to go buy a division rival and do the exact same thing that the Twins need, which is more money pumped in so that they don't have to reset every few years like they do, even though they have some decent success. And so I'm like, well, and I'm texting my uncle in Minnesota, is like the biggest Twins fan in the world. I'm like, hey man, another loss for us. Great move for you guys. This is going to be huge for you. And that's kind of all that I thought about. I did throw out a tweet though. This was in December, that I've heard that the Ishbia brothers were interested in buying the White Sox, but you can't buy something that's not for sale. So they're going for the Twins. Well, so that's then about the same time that it gets reported that the Ishbias actually already have a stake in the White Sox, and they need to divest that to buy the Twins. And that makes it even worse, because you're like, oh my God, they're already in the building and now they're going to get out. So like, I'm just distraught about the whole thing, but whatever, and now fast forward to last night, where I guess I got to give Jerry credit here, because I think he probably is realizing that, look, you're 89 years old. I know you don't want to sell the team, but you can't let this out. If you really care about the franchise, like you say you do, you can't let this opportunity pass by. So come up with some type of creative sort of succession plan, is how I read that report. Increase the shares now. Maybe you don't have total control, but it keeps them away from the Twins in the meantime. And over time, they take over. And if that's how this plays out, I can't wait to see what happens next, Sean and Jared, because if that's how this plays out, this is a miracle for the White Sox.
Yeah, Jared, I'll let you jump in a second. Just want to give more background on the Ishbias. Justin is the baseball guy, 47 years old. He is the older brother, and he also has it's a investment group called Shore Capital Partners that is a Chicago-based private equity firm. So not only do they have the real estate on the lake, he also does have a business in Chicago. But yeah, Matt also is younger, a part of the Suns and Mercury, former Michigan State basketball player, was a walk-on and a part of their national championship in 2002. But what do you make of this, Jared, with all that Adam's laid out?
Yeah, the potential here for the White Sox as a franchise to just really turn a corner that they've desperately needed for quite some time now. I mean, that's really hard to ignore, because I think the thing that we've all recognized for some number of years is that the biggest issue with the team, honestly, it starts at the top, and the lack of investment in the roster, and the fact that Andrew Benintendi is your biggest contract. We all see that problem, and so we've seen the need for new ownership there. And so the fact that now it looks like there's a very real possibility, not only of new ownership, but new ownership with, like Adam said, with some track record of success, albeit in a different league, in a different sport, but the ability to invest in the team, some track record of success, and a guy with, some Chicago ties who's going to care about, the White Sox as a part of Chicago as well. I think that's a really important thing, because there has been a lot of the talk of rumors that float around about moving them to Nashville, moving the franchise to somewhere else in the country. So this, if it comes through, really does feel like there's a golden opportunity here for Jerry Reinsdorf to lay out the path for the future of the franchise that's going to look a lot more positive than it would otherwise. And so, if nothing else, he gets a chance to, his legacy gets a little shot in the arm, so to speak, where, if this can work out and you're setting the team on a much better course going forward, I think that people will look at Reinsdorf a little bit differently.
Yeah, and just to add on to Ishbia's connection to the Chicagoland area, you mentioned the $75 million that Reinsdorf spent on Andrew Benintendi. Ishbia has spent about $77 million on land in Winnetka alone. He bought the $16 million mansion next to his $23 million property. So yeah, this guy, I believe, would be, the Ishbia brothers combined, would be the second most wealthiest owners in baseball behind Steve Cohen. So this would be a huge influx of cash. Real quick, to the Sportico report that came out in January 13th of the Ishbias quietly investing, it seems similar. That was Michael trying to take some of the smaller owners, putting them together to a more bigger fish to take over and to invest some money into the White Sox. It seems like this is a very similar thing. Again, the Ishbias have until 2/28 to consolidate and buy up those stakes. And even if people don't end up selling those stakes, they're going to get watered down by the Ishbias no matter what. So it's basically, sell or, lose your stake just very slowly. But do you think this is a Michael move? Do you think this is a Jerry move? And with all of the real estate connections, with the 1901 project happening with the United Center, with the hopes of the 78, do you think this is more real estate connected? Because Jerry, at some point, he might not be the majority owner, but he might get his baseball stadium and see the 100th All-Star game. And, maybe that's just where he wants to go out with his baseball love.
Well, that is where I think this gets pretty political and kind of intertwined with some other reporting that I do on a more regular basis, with what's going on with the stadium situation, not only, mainly with the Bears on my end, but it's all, trust me, from the conversations I have, it is all intertwined. As much as these teams want to say that they're not competing for public money, they 100% are. And right now, when I hear, because I have a couple sources in Springfield that have been, kind of cluing me in more on the, the politics side and like what the temperature is from the Springfield side of things. We know what the team wants, but I keep being told that like there's just first of all, there's not a strong appetite to begin with to start giving these teams public funding for new stadiums. But if they are going to increase that appetite at all, like, you can't be a horrible organization that's not winning at all. You can't be the White Sox, who just set the record for most losses in a season, and then turn around and be like, hey, we want some money. So I think where this could potentially help that is, okay, if Justin Ishbia can put all that money he's putting into his own house on the lake, I think they'd probably be willing to put the money in to build a new stadium. Maybe all of it, for all I know. That's just a guess. I have no idea. But also, that would also, in my opinion, if it's rejuvenating the organization, probably increase the appetite from those in Springfield. And especially, I think the lawmakers that are in the city and connected, like, okay, if we can find an area where it's also going to rejuvenate some of the neighborhoods, whatever that is, maybe we can come to some type of agreement, start throwing some public funding in there too. Right now, that does not exist. And so I do think that that's where that could help the stadium side of things too. And maybe that's enough for Jerry to be like, all right, well, if that's what I need to get what I want here at the stadium, then this is maybe the win-win succession plan for everybody involved. And in terms of his son and the family, I mean, I don't know this, but I would have to think that maybe there's been some pressure within there being like, come on, man, if you just can't sit here and do nothing, and then let this guy go to your rival Twins, and then just we're going to be sitting here with nothing here in Chicago then.
Well, and it seems like there's such an uncertainty too with CHSN. I mean, this seems like the time that it's just very convoluted for the Chicago White Sox, for the Chicago Bulls. They have so much going on with the United Center. Jared, anything else that you make of this report, of Jerry, of the political landscape with stadium funding in Illinois? Such a fun topic.
I know. Well, one of the other things that I do think it points them in a positive direction, like Adam said, for the potential for this stadium project. I think when we all saw some of those, the mock-ups for the 78 and what they were thinking about doing, it's really easy to envision the way that could change. That could also help change the trajectory of this franchise. Because that's, you bring them in closer to the city, you're on the South Loop, the chance real estate wise to control so much more of that property around the stadium is also something that I can see would be appealing. I mean, we've kind of seen it on the other side of town with the Ricketts family and what they've been able to do with Wrigleyville. Like it or not, that's their neighborhood now. So if there's the potential for the White Sox to do something similar, they have to be a better team. It has to be a more appealing project when you're going to have to ask for some kind of public funding. You cannot ask for that when you're coming off of 121 losses. That's definitely not the time to do that. So if you've got a better product on the field, or at least the potential for a better product on the field where we can see kind of the path to that a little more clearly, then it's much easier to secure something like that.
Yeah, Jared, I'll just add this because it still seems odd to, I think, most people that the White Sox would be hooked up with public funding for a stadium before the Bears would. But I'm consistently told this all the time, as crazy as it might be, but Jerry Reinsdorf is much more connected in Springfield than Kevin Warren is. I mean, Kevin's trying to get there. He's trying to do everything he can, but Jerry's been doing this for decades. There's, some very specific connections I've been told about. So I think, I do think that it's like, well, look, you have those connections, but Jerry, come on. This thing needs to be set up better long-term if we're going to start going down this road. And so I think that's kind of the big headline in terms of how this could potentially help the stadium is just you add in some money, some real money with new ownership behind this and a real succession plan. I think you start to get what you want then if you're the White Sox.
Well, and I'm not sure how involved Joe Mansueto is going to be, the owner of the Fire, in the 78. But if you have Mansueto's backing, you have the Ishbia's backing, and then you get the maybe little sliver of public funding, and there is still some private funding behind that. I mean, these are the people that have that private funding that could build a real estate investment like that, and a whole neighborhood like they're envisioning for the Chicago White Sox. All right, that is going to do it for this brief VOD. Thank you to Adam and Jared for joining us. We'll have more coverage on Monday at 4 p.m. on the CHGO White Sox podcast. Jared is going to be down in spring training next week as well, so we'll have some coverage on Friday when we have more information about the Ishbias increasing their stake in the White Sox ownership. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We all
All City like the mayor.